Hey guys, it's Morgan with BDSM Relationships and Education. Thank you very much for checking out this video. Today we are going to talk about the pros and the cons of being a pro dom. I think one of the things that I get asked about the most, maybe not the most, but quite a bit, is being a pro dom, because I have been a pro dom for the last, 10 years. Now I've stopped since I had the accident 2 years ago, but I would like to go back to it at some point. I'm just working on figuring out the logistics of it all. But I have 10 years of experience as a pro dom, and so I'm going to tell you what my personal pros and cons are about this. Your mileage may vary. You may have different feelings about certain things. Everybody has a different experience. My experience of being a pro dom was overwhelmingly positive. I loved my job. I can't wait to go back to it. And I miss it. I really do. And I guess you guys are going to find out some of the reasons why I miss it. Now, nothing is perfect. There's always cons and downsides to everything. So we're going to talk about that today. So just very quickly, if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel by hitting the button down below. Click the notification bell, and that way you will know every time I post a new video. I'm trying to get back on some sort of schedule of posting at least one per week. We'll see how that goes. And hopefully maybe I'll do some more live streams, because I really enjoy doing those, but we shall see. Anyways, let's get to it. And I've got 7 pros and 7 cons, and I mean, like, they kind of correspond and stuff. So just gonna have to check my notes here. So let's go through the pros first, and then we'll go over to the cons. Yeah, I think we'll do that. So the first pro of being a pro dom is that it pays well. It's got a very good hourly rate. Now, you have to take into account that there's a lot of work that goes into it that you are not getting paid for. So all of the hours that you spend getting ready, preparing your dungeon, buying toys, putting the toys together, cleaning the toys, just all of that kind of stuff. All the advertising you need to do, if you maintain a website, doing that. There's all kinds of stuff that you have to do. But even when you break it down and sort of include that work, the hourly rate of being a pro dom is generally pretty good. Now, it really will depend, like, what you earn for that hour or whatever that you see your client is going to really depend on where you live. But certainly it is anywhere between, at least in like Canada, the US, anywhere from $200 an hour upwards of $500, $600, $700 an hour. It really depends on the services being offered, the amount of skill that those services take, the environment that it's happening in. If you find somebody that is working out of, say, a rented space or a hotel, that kind of stuff, it's going to be a bit of a lower price. But if somebody has a very large, elaborate dungeon that they need to maintain, you're probably going to be paying more for that. So it can be quite a decent living. You're probably not going to get rich being a pro dom, but you'll live comfortably. For me and for a lot of people, it was a fantastic excuse to buy lots of clothes and toys and everything BDSM related. Every time I look at things, it'd be like, well, that would look great in my dungeon. Oh, my clients would really enjoy this. Or, hey, that would be a great outfit to wear for sessions. So it really did become a really good excuse to buy all kinds of things. I still have. I need to sort through them and get rid of some of them because I can't wear most of them anymore. But I have over 200 pairs of high heel shoes because I could. Like, that's it. I could. So I bought them, and I love high heels. So I got to go through those. I can't wear them. So, but yeah, you get to buy stuff. It's fun. And then the job itself is a lot of fun, or at least I found it to be fun. I loved what I did. And I think that it really shows. There are certainly people that are not into BDSM that still work as professional doms or pro subs. And, you know, I think that, or at least a lot of my clients would mention that it seemed like I was actually having a lot of fun, especially because I earned myself quite the reputation as a sadist. So I would get those guys who wanted the really, really, really heavy, painful play. They, you know, wanted me to make them cry and keep going and that kind of stuff. And I loved it. I love making men cry, and women, and anybody, like non-binary people too. I love just making people cry in a consensual way. It's fun. But yeah, they could tell. They would comment to me. They'd be like, wow, you really enjoy this. And it's like, yes, I do, thank you. And so I also found it really fulfilling. There were certainly clients that I met that had the ability to join a community, or they were coming to sort of test the waters. And if they liked what we did, then they were going to go and try to engage in these kind of relationships in their personal life. And so it was always really fulfilling for me to connect with those people and to be able to give them some advice and have a lot of fun, and then say, hey, like, go out into the world and, you know, do this for free, right? And I've you know, talked to them and said, like, oh, you know, I'm going to this event. Why don't you, you know, come by, check it out, you know? And again, you know, not everybody is going to be able to do that or feel the same way. But I always, I had really great relationships with people, and I would rather see somebody happy and fulfilled in their life than, you know, have them pay me on a more regular basis. There's always more clients, but if people were able to join the community, because it's so important to me, my community, I like to be able to introduce people to that as well. And on that same note, you can meet some really cool people. Some of the clients that I had were absolutely fascinating people. We, you know, would sit and chat before, after, sometimes about just life in general. And so it was really cool to meet them and to learn them and like learn about them and just, I don't know. You know, it's a weird sort of relationship because there is definitely some professional distance there. Like, you know, I could be friendly with them, but I still had to be that fantasy. But they could tell me stuff that they couldn't talk to other people about, which was really nice. And that made me feel amazing to be able to be that person they could confide in. So that was really cool. You do get a certain degree of fame and respect within your community. Or, I mean, certainly some people get much bigger degrees of fame. I'm thinking of some pro doms, like Alexandra Snow is really, really famous and absolutely fantastic. I think she does live sessions now, but she started out just doing like video stuff, and you could see her as she was going. She's very, very talented, and you could see her growing and just becoming this amazing dominant. And yeah, so there is that. Certainly that. And if you go to things like DomCon and those sorts of events, you can see a lot of these pro doms that have really, really made it. It's a great chance to explore new kinks. There's been a lot of things that I wasn't sure if I would really be into them, but I had a client who wanted to try it or wanted to do it, and I was like, well, why not? In fact, it's how I discovered my love of water sports. I was like, yeah, okay, I could totally do that. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it, but whatever. It's not like it's hard or anything. So, you know, I did a bit of research to make sure that I knew what I was doing and getting into, and I did it, and I was like, hey, this is kind of fun. I like it. So that's how I figured it out. Because prior to that, I was always just like, yeah, that's a little weird. Who wants to pee on people? Apparently, I do. And finally, my last sort of pro on this list is that it's a great chance to travel around if you want. You can find work wherever you go, and a lot of pro doms will, talk to each other, will rent dungeon space to each other. So if you're in a city that you're not necessarily familiar with, you can find a place where you can rent space. And quite often, or at least it's been my experience, I could talk to the dom, and when I hosted traveling doms at my dungeon, they could talk to me and be like, oh, hey, this client wants to book. Is this somebody you know? Is this somebody on your blacklist? That kind of thing. So we could share that type of information, and that was really, really awesome. So let's get on to the cons. And I'm going to say something, and it's the first con, and so it all ties together. I forgot to mention at the beginning. A lot of people, tons of you guys, emailed me wanting to know how to become a pro dom. I cannot share that information with you, unfortunately. I would absolutely love to. It's not my hands are tied, figuratively. Professional domination, at least here in Canada, is considered to be sex work. And so if I tell you guys, if I give you advice on how to become a pro dom, that is technically grooming. So I cannot do it. I can't tell you how to become a pro dom, but I can give you an idea of the reality of it. And I can get into more details. If you guys have more questions about being a pro dom, please definitely leave them below. I'm happy to share my experiences as much as I am able to. But yes, that is the first con. It is considered sex work in a lot of different places. And even if legally it is not considered sex work, socially it is. If you look up, I don't know if it's still the same, I haven't done it in a while, but Urban Dictionary, not exactly a reliable source, but somebody was like, we were talking about it and it came up somehow, and I looked up pro dom or dominatrix. The terms are sort of interchangeable. And you know what the definition of it was? A BDSM prostitute. So they think the rest of the world considers it to be sex work. Whether you are engaging in sexual acts or not, it doesn't matter. That is the perception. So it comes with all of the stigma and all of that sex work does. Now, you do sort of sometimes, vanilla people, if you say, oh, I'm a professional dominatrix, you do sometimes get that like, oh, cool. But then they think about it, and pretty much every vanilla person I've ever talked to about it assumes that I'm having sex with my clients. And we're going to talk about, I'm doing another video for pros and cons for clients, but generally sex is not involved. But people assume that it will be. There are bad clients. That's my next con. It's absolutely bad clients. Sometimes they're just assholes. Sometimes they harass you. Sometimes they stalk you. I've heard stories from other doms of them being robbed, them being raped. So it can be dangerous. Whenever I worked, I would always try to make sure that I had somebody else there, just so that if I did run into trouble, I had backup. And when I had my own dungeon, I always made sure I was on the premises where I could hear it if they needed help, so that I could help them. Because there has been certainly cases. I was very, very lucky. I've only had a couple of unpleasant experiences. And a few in 10 years is doing pretty good. But certainly these kind of things happen. And a lot of it, unfortunately, comes from the stigma of sex work, because they know, it's this questionable legal area, or it's flat out illegal, or whatever. You're not going to call the police. So it's a thing, unfortunately. It can be problematic in relationships. I know when I first became a professional dominatrix, I became a pro dom and started dating a guy pretty much at the same time. And I told him flat out, like right before we started dating, that this was, hey, I started a dungeon on Monday kind of thing. So he knew what he was getting into. And he was okay with it. But then every time we would get into a fight, he'd throw it in my face and say some pretty nasty things. And say some pretty nasty things about sex workers in general. So, it can cause problems in relationships. So obviously I broke up with that guy. He was no good. But, yeah, it can cause problems in relationships. It can cause jealousy issues and all sorts of other things. And I also have had problems in relationships where, because I have limited energy because of chronic pain. Partners have said, well, you have energy to work, but you have no energy to play with me. And it's kind of like, yeah, but I have to work because I have to eat, pay my rent. So it can cause those kind of problems as well if you have that type of issue. Or if you're just in a funk and you don't feel like playing, but, you got to do it for work. So it can cause problems in relationships. It can also cause some issues within the kink community. Not everybody within the BDSM community appreciates pro doms. A lot of people, and I'm sure you'll see some hate in the comments here. It always happens. So yeah, it's one of those things where not everybody appreciates pro doms. Some people just view us as people that aren't actually kinky and we're just trying to, make money off of their lifestyle. And yeah, that's true for some people, for sure. But I think that most of the pro doms, like certainly most of the ones that I've ever met, have been genuinely kinky. Like they were community people before and will be after kind of thing. So, but yeah, sometimes it can cause problems. It can be tricky to navigate being a pro dom in the BDSM community. People sometimes make assumptions that all of your partners are paid partners or things like that. So, and I mean, a lot of the times, obviously, party hosts are going to be pissed off if you are seeing paid clients at a party. But if they assume all your partners are paid partners, then it can be a problem. So, it is, I mentioned this when I talked about the good hourly rate. Well, the flip side of that is that it's a lot of work. Like I said, there's building and maintaining websites, blogs, social media, advertising, booking clients, keeping track of all of that, making sure that you get new photos done and photo shoots. Like it may sound really, really glamorous, but it is a lot of work. And if you want to be successful at it, you need to do that work. So it is a lot, and it takes a lot of time. And especially if you get into the point where you're running a space and perhaps you have other people who rent your space or work out of your space, then it becomes even more work. So yeah, it can be it is a lot of work. Absolutely. Like I said, I enjoyed it, and I liked that a lot of the work that I needed to do, I could do even on bad days when I didn't feel like, nobody knows if I'm making posts on the internet wearing my pajamas or if I'm all, head to toe in leather, right? I just tell them I'm head to toe in leather and be sitting in my fuzzy pants. It's great. And then, yeah, finally, and it's again stuff that I talked about on the first of the con list there, is that there are potential legal issues. It's like professional dominatrix, professional domination is considered to be sex work in a lot of parts of the world, and in a lot of others, it's just a gray area. So sometimes you can fly under the radar, and sometimes you're gonna get in trouble. So that is potentially a problem. I know people who have been banned from countries because it was known that they were a sex worker. Again, there's no distinction made in a lot of people's minds between dominatrix and sex worker. So, they've been told they cannot come to certain countries because of that. So, be aware. be aware that there's a lot of stigma that comes with it, and there's potential legal issues. I have no idea if sex work or professional domination is legal in your jurisdiction, so please do not ask me. You guys can Google that information, and if you're really concerned about it, I'd suggest you talk to a lawyer. Most of them will answer a couple of questions for you for free, or for a very small fee. So you may need to do that. But yeah, I have no idea where you live, if it's legal. I do know that in Canada it is considered to be sex work. And the current laws state that sex workers won't be punished, but they will. And the clients will be punished. So it's sort of a messed up thing. Trudeau promised that he would fix this, but he hasn't. Not getting into political stuff. I'm sorry. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there for you guys. That is my list of pros and cons about being a professional dominatrix or a pro dom. If you have other questions about being a pro dom, please make sure you leave them in the comment section, and I will, do my best to address those in future videos, because we're going to talk a little bit about professional domination. Because why not? So yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.